Every year on the third Monday of January, the United States celebrates Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a holiday honoring the life of a man who greatly impacted American history. Dr. King was a Baptist minister and a social activist who dedicated his life to fight for justice in the United States. Dr. King was all about a nonviolent protest for racial equality and civil rights, which kicked off a movement in the 1950s and 60s, leaving us a lasting impact on American society. His leadership was crucial in ending segregation for African Americans and helped lead the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Here on Matter of Factx, we have compiled 10 lesser-known facts about the man that you probably did not know. The King family paid for Julia Roberts' birth. It turns out that civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife Coretta Scott King paid the hospital bill when actress Julia Roberts was born in Smyrna, Georgia in 1967. Roberts revealed her birth story in a conversation with CBS Morning co-host Gayle King as part of an A&E Network and History Channel live event in Washington, D.C.
Let's start with the day you were born. Who paid for the hospital bill?
The King family paid for my hospital bill.
Not my family.
Not your family, but
Martin Luther King Jr.
and Coretta.
According to Julia Roberts, her parents Walter and Betty Roberts couldn't pay for the hospital bill, so the two activists offered to do so. The move was in gratitude to Roberts' family for a previous gesture. Julia's parents owned an Atlanta theater school called the Actors and Writers Workshop. One day, Coretta Scott King called Roberts' mom and asked about her children joining the school because the Kings were having trouble finding a school to accept them in segregated Atlanta. Julia Roberts' mom, Betty, said, "Sure, come on over." And so eventually they all just became friends. King's birth name was Michael, not Martin. Dr. King was born Michael King Jr. on January 15, 1929. But in 1934, his father, a pastor at Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church, also named Michael King, went on a religious trip around the world and was inspired by Germany's Protestant Reformation figure, Martin Luther, who led the Protestant Reformation, a 16th century religious movement that challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. After returning to the US, his father decided to change his 5-year-old son's name and his own in honor of the Protestant Reformation leader. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth certificate was officially revised on July 23, 1957. The making of a leader. Civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. skipped 9th and 12th grade, entering Morehouse College when he was 15. He received his bachelor's degree in 1948 from Morehouse College, then studied theology at Crozier's Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, where he was elected president of a predominantly white senior class. After he was awarded a Bachelor's of Divinity in 1951, he enrolled in graduate studies at Boston University, completing his residence for a doctorate in 1953 and receiving a degree in 1955. During his activism, MLK Jr. traveled over 6 million miles and gave over 2,500 speeches. At the time, he was the youngest to receive the Nobel Peace Prize at age 35. He was the first African American to be named Times Magazine Man of the Year. Times Magazine named King Man of the Year in 1963. He was the first African American to win the award. Time wrote in the story that few can explain the extraordinary King mystique, yet he has an indescribable capacity for empathy that is the touchstone of his leadership. By deed and by preachment, he has stirred in his people a Christian forbearance that nourishes hope and smothers injustice. Later, King said that being named Time Man of the Year, now Person of the Year, was a tribute to the whole civil rights movement. He also thanked the magazine for putting an African American of a prominent position on its cover. King narrowly escaped an assassination attempt a decade before his death. On September 20th, 1958, King was in Harlem signing copies of his new book, Stride Towards Freedom, in Bloomstein's department store when Izola Ware Curry approached him. The woman asked if he was Martin Luther King Jr. After he said yes, Curry said, "I've been looking for you for 5 years." She plunged a 7-inch letter opener into his chest. The tip of the blade came to rest alongside his aorta, and King underwent hours of delicate emergency surgery. Surgeons later told King that just one sneeze could have punctured the aorta and killed him. From his hospital bed, where he recovered for weeks, King issued a statement affirming his nonviolent principles and saying he felt no ill will towards his mentally ill attacker. King's mother was also slain by a bullet. On June 30th, 1974, as 69-year-old Alberta Williams King played the organ at Sunday service inside Ebenezer Baptist Church, Marcus Wayne Chenault Jr. rose from the front pew, drew 2 pistols, and began to fire shots. One of the bullets struck and killed King, who died steps from where her son had preached nonviolence. The deranged gunman said that Christians were his enemy, and that although he had received divine instructions to kill King's father, who was in the congregation, he killed King's mother instead because she was closer. The shooting also left the church deacon dead. Chenault received a death penalty sentence that was later changed to life imprisonment, in part due to the King's family's opposition to capital punishment. King's philosophy of nonviolence, woven from Gandhi and Thoreau. One of the most significant and tangible effects India has had on life in the United States was Mahatma Gandhi's influence on the civil rights leader Martin Luther King, who adopted Gandhi's and American Henry David Thoreau's, a naturalist and essayist, ideal of civil disobedience to the civil rights movement in the United States. King learned about Gandhi through his writings and a trip to India in 1959. Though the two men never got a chance to meet, King, who was only 19 when Gandhi was assassinated, King drew heavily on the Gandhian principle of nonviolence in his own civil rights activism, writing that while the Montgomery boycott was going on, India's Gandhi was the guiding light of our technique of nonviolent social change. Martin Luther King always paid tribute to Gandhi as one of the most important sources of his values. King was arrested 30 times. Like many civil rights activists of the time, King faced numerous arrests, often trumped on charges as part of a deliberate strategy by the police to harass and intimidate. According to the King Center, Dr. Martin Luther King was arrested 30 times, primarily for acts of civil disobedience, such as the Atlanta department store sit-in and demonstrating without a permit. Others stemmed from unfound allegations, including his arrest in Montgomery, Alabama for driving 30 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. King is the only non-president whose birthday is a national holiday. The effort to create a federal holiday in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. began just days after his assassination on April 4, 1968. Despite its importance, legislation faced years of delay. Representative John Conyers, a Democrat from Michigan, and Representative Shirley A. Chisholm, a Democrat from New York, advocated for the holiday, but a House voted in 1979 failed by 5 votes, despite President Jimmy Carter's support. Opposition led by Congressman Gene Taylor, a representative of Missouri, cited costs associated with the holiday. Public support surged after Stevie Wonder released Happy Birthday, a tribute to King. Ultimately, the holiday was established in 1983, signed by President Ronald Reagan, 15 years after King's death. It wasn't until the year 2000 that Martin Luther King Day was officially observed in all 50 states for the first time. King was a Grammy Award winner. Martin Luther King Jr. was the posthumous Grammy winner for Best Spoken Word Recording. He received 3 nominations, 1 during his lifetime and 2 after his assassination on April 4, 1968. His landmark I Have a Dream speech, featured on the album We Shall Overcome, The March on Washington, August 28, 1963, was nominated in 1963 but lost to the original cast recording of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. In 1968, his album I Have a Dream was also nominated, but lost to Rod McCuan's Lonesome Cities. King ultimately won in 1971 for the album Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam, nearly 3 years after his death. His I Have a Dream speech is celebrated as one of the most significant speeches in history and was inducted into the National Recording Registry in 2002, later entering the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2012. Hey guys, we come to the end of the video. Out of the 10 fascinating facts about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which one surprised you the most? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you found any value in the video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, see you soon.